Hey, what's up gamers? Last year I discovered the wondrous world of skateboarding. I never skated in my life before, so it was quite a challenge to start at my age. I haven't improved much and I still am a big noob, but I really enjoy the activity. I wondered if somehow it would be possible to combine skateboarding with video games. Because as you might know, in video games it's very easy to track your progress. You have scores, achievements, all that jazz. And in real life it's way more complicated. You need to use stopwatches, record yourself and then analyze the footage. One day while I was trying to do some manuals on a carpet, as usual, I got an idea. What if I could create a controller for the manuals, which could register when your wheels or tail touches the ground? This way I could create a game that measures how long you can stand on two wheels. At first I wanted to make this controller for the Famicom, but I changed my mind, because I would need to figure out how the serial protocol for the controllers works. Plus, this video would get much longer, since I would need to introduce the new system. So why not to try to use the 2600? Its joystick is nothing more than 5 buttons and a wire. The only downside, it would be super painful to write the game. But I've decided to make the game super simple. So I got to work. First, I acquired a cable with 6 wires and a D-sub-9 connector and some questionable buttons. And if they will not survive under my weight, I would use some plates from a Famicom controller and some conductive rubber. Most importantly, I got a piece of plywood for the base. I've noticed the floor in my apartment was not very even and the skateboard rolled off the platform every time. So looks like it would be much harder to keep the balance compared to the carpet or rough asphalt. I've decided I'm going to place 4 contact plates on the platform, so I started measuring how big they should be. Definitely the biggest ones would go for the both pairs of wheels, the smaller ones for the skateboard's tail and the nose. Also, I had plans to cut the corners off from the platform and make small legs from them, so the platform could be raised a little bit off the ground. Since the buttons I'm using are quite tall, I will have to drill 4 holes in the platform to socket the buttons in. So after all the measuring and marking was done, I cut the corners off and then one after another I started drilling holes for the buttons. The buttons were not only tall but much wider than the holes I just drilled. I had to file the holes and widen a bit so the buttons could fit. Also, I needed to insert the buttons a bit deeper in the plywood so I won't smash their casings with my weight. For that, I had to carve the edges of the holes with the knife a little. After a long and strenuous filing and cutting process, the holes were ready and the buttons could finally be inserted into the board. But since their contacts were sticking out, it was necessary to glue the corners as the legs first. I sanded the surfaces first and used the regular PVA glue. I guess it's very important to press the glued parts with some weights and keep them like that over the night. The next day it seemed the legs had attached very firmly. Now it was time to solder the cable, but first I needed to figure out the pinout of the 2600's joystick's connector. I took apart a 2600's joystick. As you see, there is nothing special about it, just a PCB and some metallic plates for each button. Using a needle and a multimeter, I tried to find out which connector's hole is connected to what button. When the pinout was clear, I soldered the D-sub 9-hole connector to the cable and went for some testing on the 2600. As you see, I can control the character just by touching the ground wire to the other wires. Now let's put the buttons in. And solder the wires of the other end of the cable to them. To prevent the wires from dangling, I glue them to the board with some duct tape. Then I realized I would need another set of legs in the middle of the platform to prevent it from bending under my weight. For that, I cut off two smallish pieces of plywood. I glue them in the middle on the both sides of the main platform. And as with the corners, I put some weights on and left it over the night for the glue to dry. The next day, the new legs were holding firmly, and I could finally step on the board. It was about time to start working on the game. I've decided to simply display the score and the high score above it, and draw some simple pixel art person that mimics your pose. I drew 4 pictures of 48 on 48 pixels resolution, and it almost took all the space in the 4 kilobytes ROM. I forgot how the 2600 distorts pixels, so the skater got a bit chunky compared to what I was drawing. The game simply gives you a point for every frame you are able to stand on 2 wheels. If other wheels or the skateboard's tail or nose touches the plates, your score will be reset, and if it's high enough, it will be displayed as a high score. Since the NTSC 2600 can display 60 frames per second, you can find your time just by dividing your score by 60. If you get 60 points, that means you managed to hold for a second. Due to the fact I wanted to keep the game as simple as possible, there are no separate score for the nose manuals. Now let's finish making the controller. Since the buttons that are socketed in the board are quite small, I needed to place some thin plywood plates on top of them. I measured the plates for the wheels and started cutting. To keep the plywood plates still on top of the board, I decided to attach them with nuts and bolts. For testing purposes, I drilled 3 holes on the first plate and later on the main board itself. Never ever try drilling things on a carpet. Then I decided to cut the plates for the tail and the nose as well. They also had to be drilled. Also, I drilled holes in the second wheel plate. After that, I started marking and drilling holes in the main platform. Even though I specifically bought a drill bit that's meant for wood, the drilling still caused some light burning.
Fire!
When the work was done, I tested some foam to lessen the impact on buttons, but it seems it's not necessary. The plates work better without it. So the final step was to fasten the plates with some nuts and bolts. After it was done and I programmed the EEPROM with the latest ROM, I could finally start doing some manuals. As I expected, it wasn't that easy. The hardest part was to keep your wheels on the plate, because the skateboard darted back and forth. Nose manuals were extremely scary. Most likely because I didn't practice them that often. But now I had an opportunity to improve them. At least I could hold the regular manual for a few solid seconds. I got hooked and wanted to beat my high score. I don't know though if stationary manuals are that useful for real skaters. But nevertheless, I had lots of fun making this simple controller and playing with it. The controller also could be used for existing 2600 games that not require fire button. Or I could develop some fitness or rhythm games for it. But I don't have plans for that now. Because right now I'm really excited about the game that I'm gonna develop for the NES. And if you're interested in what I'm going to make, then please subscribe the channel and we will delve into the NES development in the next video. So thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!